Hello and welcome to Yes, You Are Brave. This is a podcast where we are going to set off on a journey together to find and build our brave, where we explore all the ways that you have been brave and all the ways that you can be brave again. Because even though we may have forgotten or we may have fallen out of practice, we're all brave. And I'm on a mission to prove it and help you believe that yes, you are brave. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Yes, You Are Brave. I'm Pawnee, I'm your host. Super excited that you are here. Let's talk brave. So I have to be honest, this week has been a bit rough for me. Ended up with a couple migraines last week, and also kind of funny, I had time last week to record this week's episode, and I couldn't think of a single thing to say. I had the whole house to myself for like hours and I just couldn't think of anything to say. And I've really been struggling to figure out where to take this next discussion of brave, because we've gone in a lot of different directions and we have talked about a lot of different things. But I was talking to my sister about it, and she says, maybe you should talk about being brave enough to ask questions and really find out what's wrong. And I've been thinking about that since she said that sometimes we gloss over things and we don't really pay that much attention to what the real problem is. We kind of just hide how we're feeling, or there is a time, I feel like there is a time and a place for the fake it till you make it. But I also feel like we take that to extremes and then it becomes fake it until you break it, or you break you. And I think that sometimes we need to be brave enough to ask the questions we need to ask what's wrong. We need to really work to get to the bottom of whatever the problem is so that we can then do something about the problem. And I know that I'm sure that I have said this in a lot of different ways, but I really do feel like there is a lot to be said for facing our problems head on and not dancing around them, because I feel like a lot of times we dance around the problem. We don't actually say what we're feeling. We don't actually say what we're thinking. We don't actually address what we feel like the problem is, and then it just gets bigger. So I want to talk today just a little bit about being brave enough to ask those questions, to really dive in and say, what is the problem here and how do we then fix it? Because too often we are glossing over what's going on in our lives and the difficulties that we've been through. And it doesn't really do anyone any good, I don't think. Minimizing our struggles doesn't help us get through them. Minimizing the work that it took to get to a certain place doesn't change how much work we had to put in to get to that specific place. And when we do that, when we just minimize things, when we just gloss over things, they don't go anywhere. They just sit there and they wait underneath the rug until we're ready to actually deal with them. But the more we shove under the rug, the more there is to deal with when we finally get the courage to look under it and see what is there. I have a million things going through my mind right now, and I want to be able to say something that is going to be meaningful, but maybe I don't have it today. Because I have been trying to figure out what's wrong and really ask those questions and really dive into it. But the problem is that when you do that, you get an answer. And sometimes that answer or the information that you get has no easy solution. So what do we do when there's no easy solution? What do we do when we can't fix it like we want to? I think this is a great discussion to have with people and to have with yourself of what do you do when you can't fix it? What do you do when there is no simple solution? And I think that this is also a very pertinent question to ask for the world that we're living in at the moment, because I feel like there's lots of really big, heavy, difficult questions, and there are no simple solutions because the issues are way more complicated than we want the solutions to be. We want simple, easy solutions. And the problem is that when you have a complicated problem, there are no simple solutions. But just because there's no simple and easy solutions doesn't really mean that we shouldn't still search for solutions. Because the minute that we stop searching for solutions, the minute that we decide that there is no way to fix it, that's the moment that we are throwing our hands up and that we are saying, I'm done, I can't do anymore. And that's when we give up, when we lose hope. And I think that if we do anything in this world, we have to hold on to hope. Because there's a lot of reasons to let go of hope. And there's a lot of reasons to just bury our heads in the sand. And I get it. It's easier to bury our heads in the sand. It's easier to gloss over things. It's easier to treat the symptoms usually than to get down and dirty and figure out what the actual cause of the problem is. For years and years, I treated the symptoms of the problems that I had. Mostly because I didn't know any better. But when I got down to what was actually causing the problems and I changed it, guess what? I don't have those symptoms anymore. So I don't have to just treat those symptoms anymore. And I'm actually specifically thinking of, at the moment, physical symptoms that I've been able to change and things that I've been able to do that way. But there are so many things that we can do. There's so much good that we can do if we are willing to actually start doing something. Instead of just saying this crazy thing happened or this bad thing happened or I was hurt in this way. Yes, we need to acknowledge those things. That is the first step. We need to acknowledge this happened to me and it hurt. And then we need to start working on ways to move past it. We need to keep digging. We need to not just treat surface symptoms, but we need to keep digging and figure out what really is the problem. Because we're not three, and a Band-Aid isn't going to fix all of our problems. So this week, I don't have a lot for you, but I want you to be brave enough to figure out what the real problem is, to ask the difficult questions, to have the difficult conversations, to do some serious introspection and some serious reflecting and figure out what is the problem. And is what I'm doing, is it treating the problem or is it just treating the symptoms? If you've got a hole in your gut somewhere inside and all you're doing is taking Tums to get rid of your stomach ache, it's not really going to do anything for you. And I know that it's hard. And I know that it's likely that some of your solutions will seem like they will just cause more problems. You don't want to go digging because you're afraid of what else you might uncover. I get that. I feel like I'm in that place right now of I'm not sure I want to go digging for answers or digging for anything else, because what if I find all of these other things? Then I've got to fix them. Then I know that they're there and I have to deal with them. One time when I was living up north, I was attending the temple every week. And I went to the temple this one week. And I was sitting in what's called the celestial room. And it's just this beautiful room where you can sit and ponder and think and be. And I was sitting there and I was thinking it was a beautiful, beautiful room. And I happened to be looking up at this gorgeous chandelier. And I got the impression that I needed to apologize to a certain person in my life. And I was like, I was not happy about it. I was not happy about it at all. And I don't apologize easily or well. And then I went home or whatever. And the next week, I went back to the temple. And it actually happened to be a different temple. But I went back to the temple and I sat down in the celestial room. And I hesitated to start praying because I thought I hadn't yet apologized to said person. And I was a little bit afraid of what I was going to get that day that I needed to do. Because once we know there's a problem, then we need to do what we can to fix it. And I hadn't I hadn't acted on the impressions that I had gotten. And so it was very hard to want more, because it's like, well, what if I'm just going to get something like last week where I have to apologize to somebody else? Not sure I can handle that. But I did apologize. It was mostly for me, I think. I don't really think that they had even realized that there was a problem. And it was good for me. Sometimes it's good to eat the humble pie, but the point is I realized that it's hard sometimes to keep digging, to keep reaching for the real meaning behind it, to keep asking why. To get down to that root cause can be difficult and can be hard and can take a lot of work. First of all, it can take a lot of work, and sometimes we don't want to put in the work. And it can also bring up things that we would rather leave buried. It's usually not healthy to leave things buried because most of the time we bury them alive and they don't die. They just sit and wait for us. So that's what I have for you this week. Be brave enough to keep asking and find out what the real problem is so that you can work to real solutions. Because you, my dear, are worth the effort of finding the real problem so that you can find the real solutions. I love you. I believe in you. You are wonderful. You are amazing. And yes, you are brave. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed what you've heard today, please leave a review down below and share this with anyone that you feel like could use a little more brave in their life. And if you'd like to follow more of my journey to be brave, you can follow me on social media and the link down below. Have a fantastic day and don't forget to be brave.